salt and light looks like. And then, but what I'm going to do is at the end, we're going to do motions. By the time you leave here in about 25 minutes, you will be able to explain to someone else how to be salt and light. Okay, that's my goal. So the first picture I want you to think of is a waterfall. Okay, let's start with a waterfall, and it's a beautiful picture, and it's a beautiful picture because we all love waterfalls. There's something very beautiful. There's something very energizing about moving water. There's something very nourishing. I mean, when you think of that water falling down on the ground below and the nourishment that it brings, the refreshment that it brings to people, and that's the first picture I want you to have. And by the way, when you have that picture of a waterfall, that picture is you. I want you to be a waterfall in people's lives. When they see you, I want them to look at you and I want them to think, there's refreshment here. There's energy here. There's life here. Think of it in this analogy. There are world famous fountains. I mean, there are fountains in the world. I mean, you can go to Italy. I mean, and there are famous fountains that you go to see. But nobody ever said they wanted to go see a drain. No, nobody. You don't go to any kind of a, like, you don't, I mean, as a tourist, you don't go to the concierge and say, are there any drains in the city that we could take pictures of? You see, and the reason I'm using that is a waterfall, a fountain refreshes. And there are some people, they are refreshers, and then there are some people, they're depressors. You follow me? There are just some people, you just get around them, and honest to God, you just, after a half hour, you say, take me home, Jesus. You know what I'm talking about? There's nothing engaging, there's nothing exciting, there's nothing refreshing, there's nothing appealing about their life. Paul in Galatians 5, and I've used this scripture here before because it's become a real powerful verse for me in trying to help people be salt and light. But when he talks about the fruit of the Spirit, by the way, the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5, what the fruit of the Spirit is just what Paul would call varied expressions of divine love. So when you read of the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, what those are expressions of unconditional divine love, of which Paul said, the fruit of the Spirit, he produces this fruit within us. So this is something that God gives you and me. Why does he give this to us? So that we can be refreshing, so that we can be a waterfall to people, so that we can be a fountain to people. And what are the expressions? Joy that overflows, peace that subdues, patience that endures, kindness in action, faith that prevails, gentleness of heart, strength of spirit. That is so appealing. That is so attractive. You just want to go down and sit beside that. You just want to say, I want to know somebody that has a peace that subdues and a kindness in action. I get so hungry for just kindness in action. And then Paul closes this by saying, never set the law above these qualities. What the Apostle Paul said is, do never think, listen to me, the law always disappoints. The law always comes up short. The law is never sufficient. It never has been. And yet I watch Christians get so wrapped up in legalism and so wrapped up in rules and regulations and what they do and what they don't. And I just sit there and I say, honest to God, there's nothing appealing about you at all. Nothing. And as Christians, we have a choice. As Christians, we have a choice. And the choice is we can either curse the darkness or we can turn on the light. And as for me, I am tired of Christians cursing the darkness. Let's start turning on the light. And you turn on the light by becoming this refreshing. You ought to be making people hungry every day to know God. I mean, hungry. I mean, they ought to be looking at you and me, and they ought to be saying, I want what they have. What they're showing, what they're living, what they're displaying, that makes me happy. Okay, so the first picture is a picture of you as a waterfall, okay? The second picture is a picture of joining hands. And it's a picture of teamwork. It's a picture of working together. And it's essential because the work of the Great Commission, the work of Salt and Light, is for the community to come together. One is too small of a number to achieve greatness. And when I started off as a young Salt and Light practicer, I realized that I could win a lot of people to Christ. But if I would just join hands, then all of a sudden there could be a compounding effect. And I'm hoping sometime in the spring that I'll have an opportunity, I think I will on a Saturday, to take a half a day and just share with hopefully hundreds as many want to come, how to really do this. But it's coming together. It's Mother Teresa saying, I can do what you cannot do, you can do what I cannot do, but together we do great things. And it's the teamwork, it's the partnership that compounds scripturally. You know, if one will give 1,000, put 1,000 to flight, the Bible says 2 will put 10,000. There's a compounding when we come together. So the pictures of Salt and Light is that yes, I'm responsible to let my light shine. But if we come together, the light's even bigger. And think of our New Year's or our Christmas Eve service with the lighting of the candles and how beautiful it was. Okay, so that's the second picture. You're getting it. You're doing real well. We got the waterfall, which represents you and I are refreshing. Remember this: go out and be a fountain, don't be a drain. Does that make sense to you? How many of you know a drain? How many of you know some drains? Yeah. Yeah, dear Lord. Take them home, Jesus. Take them home. And the second picture is joining him. The third picture is a ladder. Okay? I want you to have this picture of a ladder because the ladder is a beautiful resource and tool to help people climb up to their potential. And what I want you to do when you're thinking of the ladder here in this setting is I not only want you to think of the ladder that helps people climb to their potential, I want you to think of it as that you're holding the ladder for them. That it's not like, boy, here's a ladder, good luck. But it's let me stabilize the ladder. Let me serve you. Let me hold the ladder for you. You see, Jesus so incredibly teaches us about the surprises of servanthood. And they're all surprises. He said, here's how this works. If you want to be first, you have to be last. If you want to be lifted up, you got to humble yourself. If you want to become the greatest, then you've got to become the servant. If you want to be first, you got to be last. If you want to rule, you got to serve. If you want to live, you got to die. He gives us all these incredible surprises, these paradoxes. And basically what he was saying is very simple, that you become salt and light, not by telling people what they ought to become. You become salt and light by holding the ladder for them and showing them an example and becoming their chief encourager to climb and to get and reach that potential themselves. You see, what I learned was this in my servanthood surprise is that what I thought was serving others is what I should do, and what I got was the fact that I got a heart that valued people when I started serving others. And what I thought was that serving others was important to people. And then, you know what I found out? I found out serving others is important to Jesus. Wow. What did Jesus say? He said, when I was hungry, you fed me, and I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink, and I was naked, and you clothed me. Now, I want you to notice, all those people were surprised. They said, wait a minute, we don't understand. When were you naked? When were you hungry? When were you thirsty? He said, well, when you did this to the least of these, when you held the ladder for them, when you served them, he said, I want you to understand, you were doing that for me. So what I want you to understand is even good people don't get the big picture. That every time we hold the ladder, every time we serve, we get to come face to face with Jesus. In fact, God values people so much that when we value people, he takes it personally. He takes it personally. He said, oh my, You just fed me. You just served me. Oh my, you just visited me. You just clothed me. So as we're getting these pictures of salt and light now, that refreshing waterfall, that's us, and it begins with me, but we then come together to be able to mobilize the diversity of gifts within the body. And as we come together to serve, to hold the ladder, to help people reach their potential. And then the fourth picture is just a picture of the heart, which represents the values of a person. And again, it's out of the heart or the abundance of life and things come. It's the heart. It's the heart that needs to be changed. It's the heart that needs to be transformed. You can never measure up. It's not how many things do I know and how many rules do I keep. David was a man after God's own heart. He wasn't a perfect man, but he was a man that had a heart. He had a heart for God. Life change, salt and light transformation. It can't be done illegally. I think I shared with you that a couple years ago, the king invited me to come to Saudi Arabia, and I spent a weekend with the family. And they wanted to do some transformation and become what they would call a moderate Muslim country. That's a different story. But anyway, I was privileged to have some little time and hopefully add value to them. But he made an edict because, in Saudi Arabia, it's a kingdom. It's a kingdom. So the king says it, you do it. And he made an edict that by 2030, that Saudi Arabia would be a transformed country. And so I'm spending the weekend trying to help them. They said, you do country transformation, help us do this. And I'm trying to connect really well with them because I want to tell them that even if the king makes an edict that you have to be transformed by 2030, that doesn't mean you're going to be transformed, because you can't legalize transformation. It has to be the heart. So I waited until the last day. In fact, I waited until the last talk. I mean, it was kind of like, well, if they shoot me, they shoot me, but here we go. I can see them taking me backyard, putting a blindfold, sticking a cigarette in my mouth, And it was a beautiful experience. It really was a very beautiful experience. Because my whole last talk was, the king can mean well for the country, but the king can't change the country. You have to change yourself. It's a values issue, and I realized that in America that we don't have a law problem. When all the Christians go fighting over all the laws, I thought, dear God, I wish they could get some depth in their life. Doesn't matter. The laws don't change anyone. Never have. You can't make laws. If you have a vile heart and a wrong heart, you'll break any law. Laws mean nothing to people. You got to change the heart. Salt and light is about values. It's not about laws. And if Christians would be as passionate about living the fruit of the Spirit as they were trying to get laws changed in the country, we'd have a revival in our country. We have completely, totally, ridiculously, immaturely, childishly lost our way. It's okay. We'll get it back. But it's a picture I want you to see is the heart and the values. So we're refreshing the people, attractive to them. We're a fountain, not a drain. We come together. We offer servanthood. We give tools and resources to help people reach their potential. But we know this. We're going for the values of the heart. That's where the change is. And the fifth picture is a picture of a table, just a little table like this. And salt and light happens in community. It happens in a small group. It doesn't happen in a building this size with these many people. It happens when you get into your small groups and you begin to share, and you begin to talk, and you begin to learn, and you begin to hear each other. I have a degree in counseling. I've done speaking all my life. I've done training programs, resources. But can I tell you, by far the most effective way to change lives is in tables. Lives are changed one table at a time. And here's why. This is just recent research, and it's powerful. And I think I asked him to put it on the screen for you. Here's how we learn. Knowledge We just in what we know, it's about 5% of what we learn. But when you put knowledge and demonstration, when you model what you have heard, now all of a sudden it increases to 20%. But then you put knowledge, demonstration, and practice. In other words, start doing it and it jumps up to 40%. But then watch this one. When you put knowledge, demonstration, practice, and sharing, it increases to 90%. You see, the power of the table is the fact that those four dynamics are constantly at the table. People are constantly in a place of learning, watching, demonstrating, practicing, sharing what is happening. And it's all of this, when it all comes together, it's just an incredible, amazing thing. And we're really discovering this. We're having breakthroughs around the world right now. And it's not my place or time to talk to you much about them, but we're just having breakthroughs. And we're having breakthroughs in schools. And we're having breakthroughs in public schools. We're getting into public schools with these round tables with values. And by the way, those values, there are no scriptures attached to it. You got to understand, I'm going to a secular world. Relax out there, Christians. Take a pill, would you please? Would you just please let me get in the front door and have a conversation with somebody without somebody getting a little nervous on me, okay? Just relax, you're okay. And in fact, in South Carolina, where they're modeling it right now for, are you ready? 190,000 junior high kids in South Carolina, in the public schools, You see, I've always believed I could get into public schools. I just don't listen to Christians because they discourage me too much. If you would work on creativity as much as you work on hate, you'd get a lot further in your life. You would go a lot longer if you could get for something instead of having about 27 things you're against. You got to start where they are, and it's very exciting what's happening. What's happening? Just word of mouth. But we're now in South. We're going to have a model next year. Next year, I will speak at the National Superintendent's Convention in America to the public schools, and we'll have a one-year model in South Carolina of them practicing these values in the classroom. The Secretary of Education in Guatemala, every public school in Guatemala now has it in their curriculum. The Secretary of Education shared, he said, John, our teachers tell us in 3 weeks, they can see a positive change in the attitude of the kids.